at providing the space free because it's at Penn and I teach at Penn anyway. And perhaps they will be paying for their night meal and their housing, but we have options for housing on campus that are only like $15 for the night. So it might be something that teachers will come when it's that inexpensive. And we may look at, I have some dollars from the MAP contest that haven't been expended, but we may write a small mini grant to create a gift box of GIS related things, geospatial related things for each teacher who comes. And if we do that, we will be considering that and taking care of that sometime in May, early June. So you may hear more about that. It just depends on what we want to do and what it's going to cost. So
Debbie, when you say a mini grant, you mean from IGIC?
Yeah, from IGIC, yes. Because we want to provide the lunch and maybe a continental breakfast, which won't be extremely expensive. But depending on what we decide and what we think might be helpful for teachers, then we will go ahead and maybe do a mini grant. That's not for sure yet. So then let's move on. And that way, right now I'm working on identifying continuing education units that teachers might want in the public school systems, and or a credit for masters, because some of our teachers continue to try to do the Masters Plus or whatever. And so we're looking at the possibility in the past, and that was way before COVID, when we've done these and we've offered the master's credit. They take the 2-day workshop, but then they have a completion assignment that they do and submit it. And Drake has usually been our school that we have gone to, but it depends on what it is that we're going to do. And usually it was $75 for that credit, so it wasn't extravagant. So I'm checking on all of that to see where we are and what schools might be the place to go for that if we want to offer that. So working on that, hopefully we'll have that done in a couple weeks so that it can go out to all schools before they break for the summer. That way they can be thinking about it. And then Amy has a really fine list of a lot of teachers. I have the AEAs and several lists of teachers, especially teachers in geospatial related fields and the curriculum directors for a lot of schools that I've worked with. So I think we'll be able to promote during the summer somewhat too. So if you guys have questions or suggestions or things that you would like to see as part of that 2-day workshop, we are very open. I've done that several years with the UNI folks and worked with Alex Oberly and that team at UNI for teacher trainings. And we've had them at UNI every other year and then at Indian Hills and here at Penn. So we've actually done them, but what we are looking at, depending on the number of people that sign up, if we can do a second training at some point next fall, we think that it would be good to have one in central Iowa or even maybe further west. So we're looking at the possibility, if this goes well, to offer a second one. And in the past, the Science Center was all excited about doing some kind of teacher training, but then COVID hit and that kind of fell apart again. So we are kind of finally getting back on track. And so I'm reaching out to other people and the teachers that in the past didn't do it because they didn't want to do it via Zoom. So this will be a start this summer. We'll see what happens. So let us know, because Amy Logan is working with me on these. And then the other thing I want to mention is I'm just about to the point. May 11th is when the schools need to turn in their mapping contest information, their students for this year and their projects. And right now, Waukee is the only one who has reached out to me for the paperwork. They have a set of students doing this again, so we know we'll have that group. And so by May 1st, I will be asking for judges again, and I will send you the judging criteria and kind of a spreadsheet that you can use So anybody who is interested in that, please let me know if you would like to be a judge. And if I don't hear from people on May 1st, I'll send out a IGIC thing saying, hey, still looking for judges, because I would like to have at least 5. 3 was probably not enough, but 5 was about just right. So last year it worked really well. And comments are good because if you make comments, the teachers loved comments. And so the teacher last year from Waukee shared comments with her students, and she's hopeful that some of those students learned a lot. But I don't know if you remember last year, the winning one was absolutely awesome. Probably a better story map than I've ever made. So
It was amazing.
It
I'd
was.
like to interject. If you have not judged these kids' story maps, it's really interesting. It's not a tough job at all. It's fun, and if you can do it on the clock, even better. But you can put me down for a judge. However, if there are others who want to do it who have not, I would defer to them and give them the opportunity.
Sure. Well, we'll start
It's
the
just
list.
mind blowing what these kids can do.
I was totally amazed. So I've tried to up my story mapping too. So, but anyway, so I think that's all I have. Is Robin back? I don't see her.
Well, Robin,
like it yet.
yet, so we could always come back to them.
Okay, because I'm not sure on her side what she's got planned next. I know she's been working on things, so. Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Do you have like college students or interns or somebody who helps you with putting on these presentations, the workshops?
Right now, Amy will be coming, but I have a grad assistant. He's not necessarily geospatial, but I'm trying to lure him into it. And I also have several summer members for AmeriCorps. And I don't know how this worked, but I have a lot of them are interested in GIS because we're conservation, environmental, land and water stewardship. And so out of all of the students that are coming this summer, only one is not versed in GIS. So I would have up to 5 members and 4 of them know some GIS and would be willing to help, I'm sure. And my grad assistant is willing to help. And then one of the 2 full-time coordinators for AmeriCorps is learning GIS almost on her own. I'm just there when she has problems. So she's very, very capable. She's a graphic designer, so computer programs are her business. And so she just took to this like a fish to water. So she's really learning. So I have a lot of help from that kind of student now. And again, Amy said that she would be part of her grant that she gets. I don't know if it's the America View or Iowa View, whatever one, but part of that is she wrote in that she would help with workshops, that there would be so many. So she's on record as being one of the co-presenters for that.
Well, I think with the credit, graduate credit for the workshop, I think you'll get a lot of teachers. As a former teacher, that continuing education was something you always had to look at. And if it's something interesting and fun or different like this, I took sign language one time. That was,
Oh gosh, yeah.
But it counts for diversity training. And I'm hoping that we're moving forward with our goal of getting more educators and therefore more students into the GIS world.
Right. And we're hoping to promote the Iowa Map Contest then to these teachers, because once they're more comfortable, we hope that they will do this. I've also had some requests from teachers that said, what if we did a workshop where we come, but we brought 2 students with us? And I said, I would love to try something like that and see how that might work. So that might be something coming up too. And that might be a test one. Who knows what might happen there, but And they're right, because they said the students seem to take to this lots easier than we do. And I said, that's absolutely true. It's like they're fearless. So,
Well, not only that, but when you got 3 people to remember how to do something rather than just
Mhm.
one, chances are good there somebody's gonna.
exactly. So, and basically that's all I'm working on. I'm continuing to work on my hub because I agreed to present just a lightning talk on that at the big ITAG meeting because I figured it would get me going. And I have a student that knows a little computer programming. So that's what I learned, that why my hub doesn't look like the one I'm emulating, because Charlie with Esri said, well, Debbie, he said, you probably picked the premier one. We have 2 Esri mappers and 2 Esri IT people that work with them constantly year round to update their stuff because there's programming involved. And I thought, why didn't they tell you that on the template thing? To do some other things, you have to know programming. Because here I've been almost in tears because mine doesn't look like this. What I'm doing, everything it says. And Charlie just laughed and said, Debbie, Debbie, Debbie. So anyway, so I'm learning that not everything is doable with a template.
You know, that is going to be your most valuable takeaway for this lightning, I bet, because just listening to you here say that makes me feel better.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I just felt like I can't even do this with a template. What's wrong with me? I thought I should retire now before it gets obvious. So, but I'm glad I just made that comment at one of their T3G meetings. He said, so what are you guys working on? What are your challenges? And so when it came to me, I said, well, I'm ready to give up on the hub because mine looks nothing like, and of course, which one did I pick? The National Conservancy Atlas. Oh my God, it's a beautiful hub. If you ever look at it, it's just gorgeous. And I said, but mine looks nothing like this. If I click on it, it doesn't open the same way. I got to click twice or more. And he just started laughing. And I thought, oh no, this must be so easy. He's laughing at me. And they said, no, you need to do things completely differently with some of those things. We have people full-time just devoted to that hub. So anyway,
Hey, Debbie.
someday William Penn will be so important that Esri will devote time to us.
Debbie, this is Matt from Esri.
Hi, Matt.
Hey, how are you? Hey, I'll be at IGIC too, and I'll be at, this is IGIC. I'll be at ITAG too.
Okay.
Before your presentation, do you want like a solutions year or somebody to go through your hub site with you, support you in putting that
Oh,
together?
gosh, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, just,
Like tomorrow? Tomorrow?
Yeah.
good?
No, it will have to be in June because I plan to have the full thing done by June 1st, and then I can edit and make it better.
yeah, just let us know. I'll find somebody that can connect you and they can spend an hour on
Okay.
the phone with you walking through
All
it.
right. So if I want to do that, can I just email you?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Kasarina, I think is her name, has been helping me a little bit, but now I need, I think, major help. So, all right.
Well, let's move on to Patrick. Is Patrick on?
Yeah, I think so.
I am.
There he is.
Hey, Patrick.
Sorry. Good morning. Greg is on, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I will probably chime in on some LiDAR related things if Greg is going to give a report on that. I don't know if he is or not.
Well, he
Are you,
just
Greg?
chatted. Yes. Greg, do you have access to Mike? Greg, did you hear
Is this working?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
you hear
is.
we can hear you.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I'll just wait till Greg talks about LiDAR, if he's going to do that at other projects, etc. I'm assuming that's where that will go right after this. But related to regular state stuff, Casey, Court, and I are slowly making changes related to geodata.iowa.gov, which is open data hub site. And we have the Magic Clearinghouse Summit, which will be in August of this year, where Iowa will be hosting all the other regional clearinghouses, the Magic states, basically. And we get together every year and talk about clearinghouse related things, which includes all those fun topics like metadata and documentation, standards, different things like that, problems we have.
When is that,
So
Patrick? In August?
it's August sometime. I
Okay.
think it's the third week of August, I think. Right now we're planning on it being in person, but last year we did just a virtual summit, which still seemed to work with all of us. Related to that, Casey and I put in a proposal for a workshop, or not a workshop, but a presentation at ITAG related to if anybody is using ArcGIS Online on sort of the standards or best practices for publishing your services, and things like putting a proper title, tagging, categories, description, and metadata. Things that we've done and are continually are updating on the State of Iowa Clearinghouse, just so people can find stuff. When you look at things like the title and it says locations, that doesn't help anybody outside the state or even in the state to make sure that that's sort of things like the authoritative data set or
Roads. I got
right,
too many
roads. How many roads?
At
So
least say Boone County roads. Who's
exactly,
Iowa roads?
Penny gets it, but I think thinking that the context is always to think outside of your organization and how will somebody else discover this data if it is public data, or even internally, making sure people can do that. And things that Casey and I have sort of worked out related and continually work out of making that data discoverable, both internally and externally, a little bit easier. So we'll
Hey.
be doing that sort of thing.
Patrick?
Hopefully, as long as somebody approves that talk.
Oh God, they
So.
better. We'll go after them afterwards. Hey, in preparing for that, just
Mhm.
covering my bases because I am already super interested in that topic. Will you have some kind of, you and Casey, can you prepare some kind of a cheat sheet handout? Because we'll be scribbling notes furiously.
We will. Yeah, that's a great idea, and we will attempt to do that. And if
I
not,
just-
we'll do
I'm
it.
thinking,
To warm up for your topic, maybe you want to do a lunch and learn just to
oh,
dry
I'm not.
I don't have any time between now and then.
That's okay. We're full up
Unfortunately.
until ITAG. We're good.
So,
But
yeah.
I'm thinking back to your clearinghouse workshops you did, a
Mhm.
million years ago, and
Right.
how I had those documents on just what the dictionary meant and all that kind of stuff is really handy.
Right. And this is where it stems from is that I think, ArcGIS Online and /portal are great tools. They've opened up the door for doing a lot of things at the enterprise level that a lot of us have not been able to do before. But we need to circle back and include that documentation piece of that. And so part of this will be including, what does that metadata look like? And ArcGIS Online and Portal basically publish this hybrid version of ESRI metadata, which is a hybrid version of the CSDGM and the ISO standards. And so how do you get your metadata that you may have developed? How do you import that? So some things like that are going to be included in there. So, but I will, to cheat sheet idea is great. We'll figure that out. It'll probably end up, there's a starting point in the geodata.iowa.gov where we've been putting things like standards and that sort of thing. It'll probably end up on a landing page there as well.
Awesome.
So, thanks for the suggestion. The other thing I'm just working on that pertains statewide, some LiDAR things that I'll talk about in a minute when Greg talks about stuff. And then also broadband. We've done, I don't know, $400 million worth of broadband grants in the last 8 months. We are in the process of pivoting that program to correspond to CPF and BEAD programs that are coming out related to infrastructure related monies. We are probably headed towards a location based rather than block based broadband grant program, which means we are doing some things with Iowa's submission with a national address database, including using things like thing called place key. If you're familiar with place key, which is a unique identifier for addresses, that uses behind the scenes, uses a lot of USPS data, other standardized data. There's a database in the back end of that. There's an API that you can go request an address, a unique address key through the place key system. But it's based on, if you're familiar with the Uber H3 hexagon indexing system. So if you're familiar with that, it's basically Uber created this tessellation, hexagon tessellation at multiple scales across the globe. And so they don't completely nest, but they overlap and are different resolutions. And so the place key system uses a one level, I believe it's level 10 of this hexagon system, to identify the addresses that and index those addresses with a concept like that's basically the what is at where. So think of there's some address like 101 Main Street is encoded in this string at and then the hexagon key, and there's a special encoding. That's oversimplifying the whole thing, but you can go to place key and read about it. But basically what that does is it gives for every address or every thing at a particular address, so you can actually encode the units, numbers, or your apartments within that. So if there's 101 Main Street has a unique identifier, but if there was apartments within there, 101 Main Street, apartment A, that actually has a separate key associated with it. And so that can be used independent of if you have your addresses that you're storing may be different than, let's say, another address in a different system, and maybe the spelling is slightly off. The place key API actually handles some of that standardization. And so you can use that key to match addresses across systems rather than having to clean up your data entirely. It's pretty interesting. There's some ESRI, I think, is a partner in this. Here, there's about a couple hundred fairly large players in the geospatial industry that are supporting and behind this concept. So that's kind of the big things right now. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Patrick. Robin has mentioned that her meeting is department. Oh, she's in. Hey, Robin, you want to pop in with what you've got to say? We got a nice update from Debbie. Maybe she's not in.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Of course not. Did you get information from Amy or from Debbie?
Debbie, yes, not Amy. It's not on.
Okay, she was on the departmental call too here, so I wasn't sure if she was able to step away or not. But I'm glad Debbie was able to give some info. 1 sec, I'm pulling up the notes I had. I don't want to forget stuff. Okay, so Education Committee. You heard most of what's been going on from them, from the K-12 perspective, or from Debbie. She and Amy have been doing a lot of work for outreach and trying to get some resource creation going. Part of that is funded from Amy's perspective from Iowa a grant we have, and then the rest is their time that they're taking to do as a part of IGIC. So I'm glad about that piece. Shifting to the part that I mostly look after is the education piece for IGIC members. We haven't had any recent education opportunities, but upcoming ones will be, hopefully all of you realize that ITAG is coming up in June, and we have the 2 workshops on Tuesday morning and Tuesday afternoon. The migrating to pro for those folks who are still holdouts with desktop. I hope the population is getting smaller every week, but we know there's people. And hopefully they will be signing up to take this class as the last push. I haven't heard from the committee organizers who are looking at registration, what that looks like for workshops, signups. I just hope it's going to be well used. And the other class is field maps, hands-on, and then in the lab to do some analysis. So I think those will be both very timely and applied. I'm looking forward to taking the field maps one. The second piece is also related to field maps and data collection. Trimble, Iowa State is hosting a hands-on tech day on May 12th with Siler staff, specifically Joe Bima, who's going to be bringing some hardware to campus, the new DA2 antenna, and showing how the Catalyst subscription works with either your phone or tablet, and field maps data collection. He's also going to have other hardware here too, the LiDAR, the handheld LiDAR collection item. I don't recall what it's named.
What day is that, Robin?
May 12th.
Thank you.
Starts at 10, goes till at least 3, but you know, it's a come and go thing. I've sent 2 emails out to this group, and I plan on doing one more. I guess it'd be the end of next week, because it'll be the following week. So keep your eyes open for that if you have any interest. Share it with other people. I know, you know, for some of you it would be a long drive, but Central Campus is pretty in May. And Joe is very helpful. So those are the upcoming professional staff type trainings that I am aware of. And that's it for what I was going to share.
Okay, other projects. Anybody have anything they want to share with the group?
We're going to talk about LiDAR, right?
LiDAR. I was
Good.
looking at an old agenda.
I'd like to hear about it.
Is there anything else besides LiDAR on there that I need to know about? Because I've apparently got an old copy of the agenda.
I think the LiDAR was just going to be covered under the state of Iowa activities.
Yeah. We just got mentioned earlier that there might be some updates. That would be good.
Can you see the screen there?
Yes.
The map? Okay. So this map is showing what we have, what's been delivered as far as the 2020 LiDAR collection. So we have all of the north central block, and we also have all of the south central delivered, and it's all available through services through Iowa State. We've within NRCS, we've produced county level data sets. And I've spoken with Patrick and Casey about this. I'm not sure if they want to go with this data or not. It's called the pre-certified data, and in USGS is the agency that's reviewing all of the data. So NRCS, USDA paid for these flights, along with some support from some other agencies like IDOLS and some others. But the contracting was with USGS, and so they're responsible for the looking over the data, making sure it follows the specifications and all that, and they work directly with the vendors. So we had 3 or 4 different vendors covering the state. Eastern Iowa was with an organization that subbed it out to, I think, 3 or 4 different subcontractors. Originally, Eastern Iowa was going to be the first data to be delivered, but it's turned out to be probably looking like it's going to be the last to actually be delivered to us due to some issues with the data collection there. The next block we're anticipating will be over here in Western Iowa. It's broken up into 3 chunks, roughly a third each. I believe block 3 will be the next to be delivered, which is down here in the southwest. This could change, so if it does change, don't be mad at me. We don't have any control over what gets delivered. It all has to do, again, with the USGS review of the data sets. So that's where we're at. It was all flown in 2020, which is pretty unique. The last data set we had for LiDAR that was flown between 2007 and 2010 was scattered all over the place in terms of when it was flown and those kinds of things. But the nice thing about this data set, it was all flown in 2020, both in the windows of data collection are leaf off conditions before the snow and then after the snow is melted. So it's pretty good data set. The difference here now with this, we have different quality levels. That's the specification for the data. So this is a step up from the 2007 to 2010 data set. So we have many more data points were collected to produce the data. And the other thing with this data set, the vendor also provides break lines for the larger water bodies and rivers. So that's another thing that's different with this data set that you'll notice right away when you start using the data. So currently I'll just zoom in here on a water body. You can see how the water has been flattened. So that's like I said, the larger water bodies have been hydro flattened. A lot better detail than what we had in the first data set. So anybody who's got a web browser can look at the data. We have both the 2020 and the what we're just calling the 2010 for ease of naming it, data sets available. You can bring them into ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro.
Greg,
There's the data there. Yeah.
would you be willing to, this map you're showing here with the different status, could you send that link out through the chat, please? We've had several people request it.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's
I
see.
think it's also useful to know that we have these as, I mean, you can use the ortho server interface, but the services themselves are something you can pull into Pro as individual layers, and that's a ArcGIS
What's
server
the,
URL.
what's the designation for that layer, Robin?
I will
Looking for it, because I got it open over here.
send the higher level. It's the higher.
Also, just the
higher
name.
level.
I see a lot of stuff that starts with ortho under,
Yep, just
under services, but what am I looking for?
That's
They're all named ortho.
I mean under ortho, if
Under
you
or-
would,
I'm under services.
It's the-
Is this how I want to
the
find it?
2020
Yeah,
Start-
LiDAR
start with
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
LiDAR 2020. Ortho LiDAR 2020. And then we got a whole bunch of dims and hill shades and so
We have
I
a lot of data for people to use, you bet.
If people would stop requesting data, then I mean,
Hey, Greg, you showed the hillshade and such. Are contours being derived from this? Are those available?
Yeah, we've built, like I said, within NRCS, we have built county level derivatives. So we have contours, derived contours, hillshade, and DEMs by county. We haven't, I haven't heard lately from Casey or Patrick if they want those. We can have them delivered to Iowa Geodata so people could download them. Or
Let's talk about that.
I can just
I think
based on
there's
my conversations with USGS, it will be months and months before the final certification on the data occurs. For the most part, there won't be any changes from what we currently have to what's eventually there, but we could, designate it as pre-certified data so people are aware of it, or put that in the metadata if that's something you want to do. But just because I know how long this stuff has been taking, from data that was collected in 2020 and now we're in 2022, it's going to be a while. So that's just what it is. So
yeah, I think that's something that we can talk about. There's some logistical things and other related stuff. But yeah, let's talk about that, Greg. On a side note, related to certified versus pre-certified, I've been in discussion in the last week of possibly having some with somebody that may have some money to do some accuracy assessment and QA/QC on this data set. Since it is still pre-certified. And that's something that Greg may need to have a conversation with you and Colin and USGS about on how something like that would actually get facilitated. Since the state is not officially a partner, we are unofficially a partner, but not officially a partner. It's primarily NRCS and FEMA. Because that's where the funding goes, is coming from. But that's something that I think we should have, since there might be an opportunity to do that, of trying to figure out where, for instance, on the DOT survey site, getting known surveyed elevations, if there's any other survey elevation areas or monumentation or other published surveys that are out there where we could do some sort of accuracy assessment, both on the horizontal and vertical component of this, to give people some indication of, yes, this is, plus or minus 15 centimeters at this location. I think that would be a really good opportunity that we wouldn't want to miss.
Patrick, you said Colin. Is that Colin McCormick?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we'd have to know how it differs from how USGS is doing their assessment. I remember the 2007 flight, or 2007 to 10, we were doing our own internal because that wasn't part of the contract. But
right, and I don't think that
USGS 5% of the costs actually cover those.
Right, and I don't, and that's why we need to have that conversation with them to figure out, is this a overall they're just looking internally to the data set to make sure everything looks okay, flight line overlaps, deduplication of flight lines, or are they actually doing an accuracy assessment, which I don't think that's in the specification. I think it's actually just a QA/QC of the data set internal to itself. And I would have to go back and look at the specifications, but also to understand basically what that contract included between NRCS and USGS. So, and I don't know what that looks like. I'm just putting this out there that I think there's an opportunity to do this, and if we can, I think it would be a good idea.
Well, in the meantime, I mean, we've got the data there for people to start using. And if, as with any data set like this, it's collected, remotely sensed data, you're you're going to do, if you're doing engineering based off of this, you're still going to have to do your own in-field assessments of the data. It's a great planning tool for what it is right now. So even before the final certification on the data set, it's a great tool for
Yep.
visualization.
Nope. I'm not. Yeah. And I'm not. I think it's great. It's great that we're finally seeing this done. I'm just saying that I think there's an opportunity that we need to talk about. And I just don't know all the details right now on any sides. The other thing that I know we've had conversations in the past, and I've had a few phone calls with some people in the last couple days, is talking about the DEM that's being generated, but and those products, but also the availability of some sort of hydro enforced product for hydrological modeling, hydro modeling, that sort of thing. And so there will probably be a meeting. Greg and Robin and anybody else and DNR, any federal agencies that we've had a meeting in the past. It was a couple of years ago, but we kind of put that on hold about talking about those hydro enforced products, and tying that to, I think Minnesota and Sean Vaughn have been doing some stuff with hydro related things and different levels of detail or different scales of those products, whether it be the very localized scale of ACPF to sort of more statewide scale that DNR and Flood Center may be doing. And just getting together and understanding where these pieces are coming together and whether there are any opportunities to look at how those particular products, derived products, are made available and sort of inventoried and cataloged as this progresses. And I know we talked about it, had some larger meetings in the past, but I think that's something that I've had a number of people express interest in the last couple of weeks. So I'll probably be putting that meeting together at some point for May or June. Just so you're aware of that. Not that I have much to contribute, but I just said I would put it together.
I think you should invite Brian Gelder.
Yep, Brian's on the list. Everybody who's on that original list that we did, I think it was a year and a half ago at this point. So.
Hey, Patrick, this is Chris Hawes, Corps of Engineers.
Yes.
Really glad you brought that up. If that wasn't mentioned, I was going to bring that up on the call. I'd be interested in participating, and you may want to reach out to Sarah Porter with the ACPF as well. She's headed back to that team from what I understand.
Okay. Yeah, and so I have those, and there's a couple people I'm going to send that list out to. I talked to, it was Jason at the Corps yesterday or the day before.
We were chatting out front of the building yesterday about this. So
got it. Okay. So yep, look for that meeting. If anybody is really interested in that sort of thing, you're welcome to attend, but it is going to be really focused on that hydro component. But if you want to listen in, you're welcome to. So just send me an email.
Something just to say to Penny for her comment on the engineers using LiDAR data. My feeling is that most folks probably won't actually use the LiDAR products themselves. They're going to end up using the derived products unless they really want to get into the processing of the LiDAR data for their own very specific needs. I'm going to guess county engineers aren't those people. They're going to want to use the DEMs, the hillshade, maybe, for visuals. And I mean, that would be just like they're using elevation data right now, which just will have the new data that should be better and at least up to date. If that was what you're asking, I think that should cover it. If you had something more specific about how they actually access the new elevation data, that's another deal.
Seen, this data looks great. What do I do with it? is kind of there. They definitely don't want to be in the processing. I can speak to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, the engineers that we have within NRCS use a little bit different approach to the data as opposed to what we do in ArcGIS, but a lot of times they're bringing it into a CAD program where they're doing some preliminary design work. So engineers have, different tool sets that they use within CAD that can pull in data from this LiDAR, create their own derived contours or whatever they're doing, or cut and fill analysis, that kind of thing.
That reminds me of something else, is that's still in the works, is that the 3-depth specification, when the raw LiDAR is processed and finally released, which is how the DEMs are actually created, is the classification of those points, and within the specification, the which is what NRCS and FEMA have generously funded, is that ground classification, noise, water, and but that's basically what we get for a classification. I've put together a grant that I'm still trying to figure out if it's going to get funded either partially or wholly, to actually get Iowa's points classified to a little bit more detail. So that classification would include buildings, high, medium, and low vegetation, ground. And so it's anything that right now, if you were to look at the raw point cloud data, it would be the unclassified stuff. So it's been determined that those things, or those points, are something of interest, but they've been unclassified. And so we take that and divide the unclassified component into the high, medium, low vegetation, buildings, and road surface, or other impervious surface, basically. And what that would do is actually allow people then to create other surface models. It might be first return, canopy of trees. It might be looking at impervious surfaces and road models, and putting into stormwater management. There's a number of different things that, once you classify those points, open up some really interesting ways to solve some problems. So if it's something you're really interested in and you have some extra money, send me a message. I'm trying to coordinate some money at the state level to see if we can actually get this done. So.
Hey, nice discussion. Thanks, guys. Anybody else have something to share with the group? Just jump in.
So the website committee is making some progress. We have 2 calls scheduled next week with 2 possible vendors to work on the website. One is Josh McNary, who was an IGIC person who did the current conversion of the website to WordPress. And then the other is Anitra Larson, who's with, trying to find that. I think it's called Twin Lakes is what it's called. Blue Lakes websites, sorry, out of Sioux Center. She is the one who helped ICIT with when they redid their website. So I think we've got 2 good options, and so we got calls to just get their feel, see how much it's going to cost, and a couple other things for next week.
I missed the financial report. We got money to pay for this, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at that point we'll have, once we get something figured out from them, then we'll come back with, probably in July, and get an approval for funds to actually do it.
Hey, Josh, did you guys look at using Hub?
There was some discussion with that. It's more of who would host it and trying to do that. I just don't think it was gonna work out as to try to figure out how to, where that was going to be hosted for the most part.
Okay, just curious.
Anything else?
This is Debbie, and there is something else I just about forgot. We've been talking to Charlie about the possibility of a state K-12 license, because the biggest challenge, it seems, for our teachers, they don't want to set up an organizational account and take that time. They don't understand it, even though their IT people are really good to help with that and they understand it. So we were discussing how that would look if we were to do it, because we would probably need to do it through IGIC. And again, because it's a school license, it's free. But then comes the added challenges of who would be the administrators for that to help teachers. Because depending on how many teachers then decided to work on map contest things or use it during the school year, it would probably start out slow, but it could get to be very top heavy really fast. So if anybody, and we were thinking maybe like Josh might have some input. Amy was going to maybe talk to him. So Josh has someday maybe you could chat with us and see what you think, because you ran the IGIC thing for a while before we all had our separate accounts. So anyway, we're looking at that because it might be a way to get more teachers involved, because that seems to be the biggest hang up when I talk to teachers. And it really isn't that tough, but I'm really not sure how that would look, and we would want to make sure that it wasn't a fail, because then that would be another layer of decision making when we don't want to do it because it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I hesitate to think about us administering. You're talking creating the users and permissions and the whole works?
Yep,
For every education institute in the state that wants to use. To me, that sounds like a step backwards when we just got out from under that, right, Josh? With something that was less intense than this has the potential to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking as well, I would rather take a couple hours and go visit with the IT and the teachers that are interested and show them how to set up and give support.
Maybe we could provide a tech team. A tech team that goes to the various schools and helps them get all set up and comfortable with it. Because once you have it set up, the maintenance should be something that's very doable at the school level.
It is. Even when I first set mine up, I thought I'm never going to be able to do this, but now we're doing one here and one at Indian Hills. And the biggest problem is remembering the passwords to get into everything. That's always been my biggest problem. So. But yeah, poor Josh, he's even been weeding out things that he had a student in there that I didn't even remember the student being in any of my GIS classes, but he was cleaning up the IGIC one the other day. So yeah, so that's why Amy thought about maybe talking to him, but it might be a solution, but I don't think it would be a good solution. And, once I retire, I might have time to do that kind of stuff.
We got a member retiring soon. Maybe she wants to volunteer.
Yeah, but I still think, will I check it enough if I were to do it? Yeah. So, but I still think that getting them on board with their own would be the best idea if we could do it. But that's one of the common complaints about this. Well, I don't know how to set this up and I don't want to be
Don't
responsible.
want
and-
to take the time to read through all the documentation.
yeah.
And maybe Esri has some sort of a tech team who works with schools already. Right before we set something up, we should check with them.
Well, and I know that it's really easy. We went into Oskaloosa, Brian and I, and we helped them set up their organizational account, and nobody's using it now. So only for that first year did they use it, so. But it's really not that hard once it's set up. And we could help set up too. And I don't know what Esri does, but they have schools all over the country, so I don't know if they have that kind of manpower either, but their tech support after it's set up is wonderful, so.
They do have, I think they have some dedicated support that for this sort of school outreach. I would be willing to bet that we could,
And I can ask Charlie and maybe Matt if he's still on, Matt Hone. Maybe he knows more about that too, but yeah, it's something that we can check. There he is.
Yeah, I would definitely reach out to Charlie about that. I mean,
Yep.
the amount of K through 12 and universities in the state trying to,
Mhm.
have somebody from Esri go in there and set all that up and configure it, and that's likely not possible. Which I imagine is part of Charlie's vision to have a single AGOL account for everyone, is that it makes it a lot easier to administer. It makes it a lot easier to support, not just from the Esri side, but the value added to everyone in the state. You don't have 1,000 different administrators of 1,000 different AGOL orgs. You have one.
Well, and I know that way back when I first started, we were looking at the state to do a site license for the state, which was quite a bit different, and but the state didn't want to do that, the Department of Ed. And so that's why we kind of never got into it. So when they did the organizational accounts, that was probably a better fit in the long run. But you're
you're saying
right.
with the statewide
Yep.
AGOL account, all you would have to do is, you would still be adding users.
Yep.
And giving them permissions to whichever
Yeah.
group, whichever school, each school would be a group, I presume, and they would get access to that group and then subfolders within perhaps even as well. So it's not an insignificant job.
No. Well, and
Sounds
you
like
would
intern
still-
work to me.
Yeah, and it would still almost take making every teacher that uses it part of the administration side, because we wouldn't know when the students are gone or who they're gonna, delete and start over with the next one. But there are some other things that we've already learned, like instead of a student name, do student 1, 2, and 3, and then you just reassign those each year to the students that come in. So I
Or
mean,
something more creative, like
Yeah.
Darth Vader and,
yeah.
Give them a
Anyway.
name. You're Darth Vader this year. This is your username and password. And then next year somebody else is Darth Vader.
Yeah, but so that's something that we're talking about, but we just don't know how that would look and how easy that would be to kind of start a big fail if we started getting more people than we could handle. And we only had an administrator or two that works with it, so. Right now, everybody is still pretty much working.
I'd be willing to help out with that.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll,
Got an intern, grad student?
and
I don't
see-
leave undergrads.
Yeah, and if we had grad students, that would be great, except that wouldn't necessarily be part of the focus. Because I'm career services and I can have grad students help do this or that, but I don't know that I could devote a grad student to just that.
I don't see it as a full-time job by any means.
No, but I mean, it comes out of the budget that what they get paid, and I don't think I would be able to pull that out of my budget because it's not focused on career services. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I,
More
Any
like-
any entry level, if any of your students are going into local government, they're going to be administering or working in an AGOL org. So that is, I don't know. I would say that's actually pretty good work experience.
I wonder if business administration, we have a huge number of students in business administration majors. Maybe that could be an internship.
IT.
Yeah, IT, and we have some pretty good IT kids, so. And I suspect a lot of people have that. Yeah, the Esri Geo Mentor program, we're the Geo Mentors basically. So,
Yeah, already in there. But-
yeah. But that's a good idea, but again, pretty much everybody is full-time until they retire. Maybe they'll go part-time. And
And
I
then they'll
plan
be
to-
like Paula and do more than she was doing before.
That's right. That's right. And right now they've told me to stop taking on new things unless I'm going to retire out of career services, and then I can do the special projects, but they're not going to pay me for the special projects. So, and GIS is, I'll do that forever, but until I'm senile or I can't remember how to turn on the computer anymore. So, because that's just fun. I just wish I had been like 35 when I learned about this.
I know, I wish I found it a little bit before
That's right.
my 50s.
So,
That's why you guys are perfect for the Geo Mentor program.
Except that whole full-time job gets in the way. And I am a geo mentor and I've done, helped a couple of local
But-
schools out,
but I will say that William Penn is willing for me to go and speak with teachers or to help them set up org accounts and to work on stuff like that as part of my special projects jobs right now. And that's why I'm doing the map contest, because they give me time at work to work on that, because they think it's a good idea to bring more resources to teachers, because we have a pretty robust teaching program. So we have a lot of pre-service teachers every year, and they can go out with a toolbox with ready to use geospatial inquiries and other things to take to their
Hey,
classroom.
Debbie, this is Patrick.
Yes.
And you may have mentioned this. I've been tuning in and out on this.
Mhm.
But have you presented at ITech?
Yeah, we just did that.
Okay.
Yep. I presented at ITech twice, way back, probably in the early 2000s.
Mhm.
Well, no, the mid 2000s. And when David Runnels and I and his mom, we would go and do that. We did that
Okay.
twice. And then I hadn't been part of that for a while. And then Amy and I went ahead and put a presentation proposal in, and they accepted it. So
Okay.
we just did that. Yep. And we know that next time we do it, we're going to ask for day one, because we were the last presentation day two, and we had only 4 people. People were leaving as I was coming that day. I
Mhm.
had suitcases, they were packing stuff in their cars in the parking lot. So I thought, this doesn't bode well. So,
And then the other thing, so I've helped 2 schools set up org accounts,
Uh-huh.
which are no longer
Okay.
active. But it
okay.
does, but when those, and it's mainly because those people are no longer there. So I'm not
Right.
sure. I think this requires a lot of thought on the model of who's actually going to be that contact within the school,
Mhm.
versus who's actually going to set up that account.
Right.
I don't think I did it correctly, because now there's no way to get at that account because that teacher left. I don't think that's the right model necessarily. And I don't know if maybe it's actually at the district level that things need to happen.
Yeah. Well,
And
I'm wondering
because there is usually a
s-
like a STEM, at least in Des Moines, there is a
I went to put in code and it wasn't taking it for
Sorry, somebody's talking.
Oh, okay.
I think the statewide version would eliminate those problems with
Well,
contact.
the problem is being able to set up in a way. One of the pieces of feedback I got is that you don't want to give teachers or students immediate ability to publish content.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that requires a sort of a custom role so that you don't, if there's across a number of schools or even school districts that may have different policies for publishing things, you need to create a really weird sort of custom role that would only allow them to publish through a specific group and only their content through that group because of, and I'm concerned about the issue came up with surrounding FERPA and student related issues and things like that. And I'm not against that. I'm just saying that unless there was having as like a statewide portal, maybe concept is cool, but having maybe a centralized point with sharing across that with approval at a school for like a collaborative environment. But that was the big issue I think that IT had originally, and some
Mm-hmm.
and those rights and who is actually allowed to publish that without vetting what a student might put out there. And that's really big because you have some really smart kids out there, but sometimes they don't always think about the full consequences. And so that might be where ESRI can come into play, is what's a best practice model of setting up an org site for a K-12 environment. And I think that would be really, really helpful. Because there's a lot of ways to do it. But finding out, is there a special role that needs to be set up so that you have not only your IT who's on the admin level, but also somebody in your org who is, let's say, the STEM coordinator for the school or for the district, that how do they get involved in that and get in the approval process? Because I think it's great. It's a great tool for students, allows them to learn some pretty interesting really critical concepts on a lot of different levels, but you also want to make sure that there is some checks and balances in place from my experience in doing this. And the other side of this, real quick before I lose this thought, and I actually got to run pretty quick here. But so is the nurturing of that relationship is really, really important. And I was able to do that with, an acquaintance that I had with that I met at a dog park and happened to be a teacher. And we had, we were able to, it's like, hey, you sound like you're really into this sort of stuff. Why don't we go and set this up? But it's more than it requires this big commitment, which already, but I'm just saying this for other people, is that this isn't a one-time setup. This is a huge time commitment that is sometimes probably best served by somebody who, my daughter's in school. I can start to build that relationship with that teacher, or somebody within that school district, because that's the part that's going to make it really successful and continue year after year after year, which you already know, because if you were to go back and look at these, for the map contest stuff, that's where that stuff is those relationships have been nurtured over time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to solve that problem. That's just trying to get everybody to commit to one school. Plus what you're doing of reaching out to different, community organizations and maybe AEAs as well.
Yeah.
So.
But Patrick, for those schools that you've lost the people in, and you don't know how to get back into it, I wonder if Esri has some thoughts on that. Maybe Matt knows. I can talk to Charlie about that too. because I know that's kind of what happened at Oskaloosa, but I brought the IT people in when we did Oskaloosa, so the IT people have that link into to the management of it. And that's why Brian and I really, when we work with our local schools, we want IT to be with us when we set it up.
Yeah, because I think that's important because just from the governance side of
Yeah,
things, is
yeah.
you have the IT doing the admin and then,
Mhm.
but having them say, you know, this is the teacher or group of teachers across these different topic
Mhm.
areas within your school who are really going to be doing the stuff. You're just here as, you know, the point of contact from the business side of things with ESRI.
Right.
So when a teacher leaves or a teacher no longer has time, you know, that sort of thing, it can be at least recovered, or that student's account can be shut down or disabled, you know, that sort of thing. And those are the things that the teachers don't have time to do. Is
Yep.
when a student graduates and they move on, what do you
Yep.
do with that account?
Yep. Well, and I notice now on the agenda, it says 10 to 11, so I should have held this for another day perhaps, but be thinking about that, and I'll talk to Charlie about some of these other issues. Amy and I are going to keep taking a look at this. And thanks, Matt, for that, for your guidance on the hub, and I'm going to shut up. And thanks for your input. If you guys have more things, please email me.
Debbie, if you want to get on another call or something, talk about it, because to me, it sounds like, I mean, getting that infrastructure in place and having that architected out correctly is the way that once you make those relationships, people can just come on board. And if they choose
Yep.
not to participate or they leave, that's fine. But that infrastructure is in place so that that can continue.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have anything quick before we adjourn for the day? Going once, two, three. Oh, Micah, go for it.
Next meeting is July 20th for the business meeting. The next lunch and learn is the last Wednesday of May. And it'll be a topic, Shane Matthews is going to be talking about Esri community maps with Esri. There will be no lunch and learn in June because of ITAG. And I might take July off too, because vacations, it's pretty low participation time. So it lets me regroup for the fall and our topics and get that fall schedule set up. So that's all.
Okay, and one quick thing, this is Paula. I just want to thank everybody. We had a wonderful magic conference a couple weeks ago down in Branson, and I was surprised as all get out. Let me see if I can get this up here. It's so hard to see, but they did award me with the GIS Service Award, and can't read in here. Beautiful award though, and I thank you all for voting for me. So that was super nice. Thank you.
It's great to see. Good.
And there were other nominees too, so that was even more
Good to
special.
clarify.
I mean, they were as deserving as I, that's for sure. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks everyone for hanging in to the end, and congratulations, Paula, very well deserved. And we will see you all down the road. This is probably the last meeting that I have to chair, right? Because
We'll have an in-person one at ITAG, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's ITAG is just going to be informal. But Penny, you start July and hand it off right away.
Right. That's right.
Drop and run.
I say, hello, here's Ben.
Uh-huh.
All right, that's the plan. Thanks, guys. Let's call it, wrap
I'll
it up.
make
Yeah.
a motion to adjourn.
Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I don't know who said second.
Nobody
That
would.
was it was Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
It's all yours soon. All yours soon, Ben. Okay, let's call it. Thanks, everyone.
Time of death.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Pay the chat.
Yeah, I'm getting there.